It truly pains me to make this video on the Washington Wizards, a franchise that was once seen as one of the rising stars of the Eastern Conference has been dealt a tough hand, although with a glimmer of hope. Let me begin this video by saying that there was honestly nothing the Washington Wizards could have done to make this situation better, unless they were psychic. There may have been one or two moves they could have made, but I don't think the situation would have been that much different had they have made those one or two moves. Throughout time, you often see decisions in a team's franchise that resulted in their downfall, or crucial decisions that lead to a team thriving. I'll give you an example. In the 2014 NBA season, the Cleveland Cavaliers somehow got the #1 overall pick in back-to-back seasons, and after drafting Anthony Bennett in the 2013 NBA draft, the Cleveland Cavaliers got the privilege of drafting Andrew Wiggins with the #1 overall pick in the 2014 NBA draft. Andrew Wiggins was seen in a light very similar to Zion Williamson. He was hyped up coming out of high school, and scouts saw a Tracy McGrady-like potential and athleticism within him. The only issues with his game was he could be a bit passive at times, but if the right team got their hands on him, that team could potentially unlock his potential and turn him into a beast. And I'm sure we all know what happened after that. LeBron James comes back, and all of a sudden the Cleveland Cavaliers are in win now mode. And there was actually a point where the Cleveland Cavaliers were actually considering keeping Andrew Wiggins and not trading him for Kevin Love. But we all know how that decision ended up. If they had not traded Andrew Wiggins for Kevin Love, they probably would have never won a championship. And we all know what ended up happening to Andrew Wiggins anyways. If he's fairly passive on the Minnesota Timberwolves right now, could you just imagine what his development would have been like playing in the shadow of LeBron James and Kyrie Irving? Another example was in the 2014 offseason as well. The Golden State Warriors were off of a tough first-round exit, and they were coming up as a hot team in the West, but many analysts believed that they were a star player away from becoming a contender. Bear in mind, back then, Klay Thompson and Steph Curry weren't really seen as all-star caliber players. In fact, Steph Curry was just coming off of a all-star snub, so I would say Curry was seen in the same light that we see Damian Lillard in right now. So they considered trading Klay Thompson for Kevin Love, but ultimately decided against it. Both of these teams made significant decisions that resulted in both of them meeting in the NBA Finals that season. But when I go back and look at the Washington Wizards over the past 10 years, I cannot find a single instance where they should have done something differently. I mean, what were the Wizards supposed to do? Draft DeMarcus Cousins #1 overall in 2010 over John Wall? Hell no. John Wall was considered the consensus #1 overall pick that year. And they both have a torn Achilles right now anyways. In 2011, I guess you could say they made their first mistake. They drafted Jan Vesely 5 picks before Klay Thompson, and I suppose this is their biggest mistake, but 2011 was considered to be a weak draft class at the time. At the time, I'm saying. Right now, it's seen as one of the strongest draft classes in the past 10 years. Most of the teams that were drafting were practically shooting from half court when they made some of their decisions, and some of those shots went in, whereas some of them just did not. And I know what you're going to say, Mike, Kawhi Leonard was in that draft. Well, Kawhi Leonard was considered to be a project player. He came into the NBA with a flat jump shot that the Spurs were able to fix with the greatest shooting coach in the league. 2011 is seen as a very strong draft right now, but players like Jimmy Butler, Klay Thompson, Nikola Vucevic, Tobias Harris, and Kawhi Leonard were all seen as gems. We didn't go into the draft expecting it to be that deep. In 2012, they drafted Bradley Beal, and in 2013, they drafted Otto Porter after Victor Oladipo was already gone in another fairly weak draft. And don't sit there and tell me they should have drafted Giannis, because he was seen as a huge project at the time too. So the Washington Wizards formed a very respectable core, a core that could easily compete in the Eastern Conference of Bradley Beal, John Wall, and Otto Porter. And Otto Porter was seen as a do-it-all guy, Bradley Beal was seen as a sniper and a great scorer, and John Wall was seen as an athletic freak built in the mold of a prime Derrick Rose / Dwayne Wade. And believe me, the Wizards had some great years. In 2014 and 2015, they were second round exits, and in 2017, they were one game away from making it to the conference finals, where I'm sure LeBron James would have beaten them anyways. But drafting isn't the only place that the Washington Wizards did work in. Bear in mind that they were making fantastic and bold roster decisions throughout all of this. They had Trevor Ariza in 2014, who was known to be an elite defender and three-point specialist. In 2015, they took a shot at Paul Pierce, and it definitely ended up paying off. Like, look at this buzzer beater Paul Pierce had in the playoffs.
Seconds left. Pierce with 3. Pierce with 2. Pierce far away at the horn.
And I truly believe this was Pierce's last good year in the league. And then they drafted Kelly Oubre with the 15th overall pick as well. And he just got paid this past summer, and everyone thinks that he's going to be a very good player in this league. This is a team that was making great roster moves. So in 2017, they decided to extend their franchise player. And this is despite the fact that Bradley Beal and John Wall were just not working out well together. They just wanted to show faith in John Wall and make sure that they kept their best player no matter what, because as you guys know, we've seen it this past offseason. Players are jumping ship to ship to ship, moving from team to team to team, and some of those players, we don't even know why they're switching teams. Like Jimmy Butler, I don't know why he went from the Sixers to the Miami Heat. Do you know? Because if you do know, let me know in the comment section down below. But bear in mind, John Wall's extension doesn't kick in until 2019. And they did take a step back in 2018, and there were talks about Bradley Beal and John Wall just not getting along together. In December of 2018, John Wall would tear his Achilles tendon, and we saw what Bradley Beal could do without his athletic running mate. Now, I've mentioned multiple times how Wall's game is heavily dependent upon athleticism, so I truly expect him to be a shell of his former self when he returns to the court. In addition to this, the Wizards owe John Wall a max contract until the summer of 2023. John Wall's game was already slipping before the Achilles injury, and it's not like the duo of Bradley Beal and a healthy John Wall could even compete in today's NBA. Like, think about it. In a league where Russell Westbrook and James Harden are on the same team, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are on the same team, Anthony Davis and LeBron James are on the same team, Michael Conley and Donovan Mitchell are on the Jazz, Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum are on the Blazers. Hell, I'd even take DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge over Bradley Beal and a ruptured Achilles John Wall. This duo just clearly can't get it done, and they are owed a lot of money. And you know when people say Chris Paul is the worst contract in basketball? Well, at least Chris Paul is going to play, and at least Chris Paul isn't heavily injured. I expect Chris Paul to actually light it up on the OKC Thunder this year, because whoever said CP3 is the worst contract in basketball was lying, because John Wall is the worst contract in basketball. But there is a glimmer of hope in Rui Hachimura. And I don't know if you guys have seen this kid play, but he balled out in Japan, he balled out in the NCAA, and he's balled out in Summer League. So unless some sort of Markelle Fultz-like voodoo happens, I fully expect him to ball out in the NBA as well. He's far from a finished product, but he is long, demonstrates an excellent scoring ability, and there's room to even develop him further. But here's the thing about development. Basketball players are like child toddlers. They need lots of attention in order for them to develop and fulfill their potential, and I'm going to give you an example of that. A perfect example of that is Victor Oladipo. You saw Victor Oladipo show flashes of promise on Orlando to showing practically nothing in the shadow of Russell Westbrook on OKC to blowing up when he got traded to Indiana. Young players need attention. So what do you do when you have an overpaid point guard who is a shell of his former self, a top 3 shooting guard who is set to become a free agent in 2021, whose stock has never been higher, by the way, and a potential star player who needs your attention to become great? Well, you should bundle John Wall and Bradley Beal together. Hell, I'd even give up a top 10 protected pick if it comes to it, so you can build around Rui Hachimura. Or you can just trade Bradley Beal to a contending team, receive a bunch of draft picks, and have John Wall as your tank commander. I don't think he'd mind at all. In either case, it's time for the Washington Wizards to trade Bradley Beal, and it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when and where the right deal is. I actually have complete faith in their front office because once again, Ernie Grunfeld, their general manager, has done everything right. They just got extremely unlucky. I wouldn't change the scouting department either. They unearthed players like Thomas Bryant, who I know was drafted by the Lakers, but those Wizards were the ones that decided to bring him in and pay him. In fact, Thomas Bryant was so good that they cut Dwight Howard. They also unearthed players like Kelly Oubre, Rui Hachimura, Thomas Satoransky. All of these players are gems. You've made all the right moves so far. And that's why Ernie Grunfeld was handed an extension 2 years ago. And it's for that reason that I have perfect faith in the Washington Wizards being able to handle this situation perfectly.